Hello and welcome to another edition of Midlands Business Update here on Big Centre TV. We've got a busy show lined up this week. A bit later on, we'll be meeting a company which has been handpicked by technology giant Google to take part in one of their latest programmes. First though, are your HR policies up to date? Do you know what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing? Do you know what auto-enrolment is? Have you had one of those nasty letters that's landed on your desk telling you about something you know you should have done months ago? Well, hopefully, over the next few minutes, we'll be able to offer a few pointers and help us. Denise Waite from the HR department in Wolverhampton is here to tell us everything she knows, I hope. Denise, welcome. Thank you for coming in. Tell us a bit about you and your business first.
HR department Wolverhampton is a franchise. There's roughly 70 officers and licensees from UK and Ireland. I started my business 2 years ago, just completed the second year of trading, and that was as a result of redundancy. So I felt the pain. I felt the pain myself, and also my client base of SMEs, micro and small businesses, of which I'm also a small business. So then I pretty much identify then with the pain that my clients are going through as well.
And at the time when a lot of companies are making staff redundant, that is a time when HR departments, for better or for worse reasons, come into their own, don't they? You know, it's a busy time.
Absolutely, because it's a very emotive time, especially for the employees, but also for the employers, because the employers don't enjoy making staff redundant either. But if the process is followed properly and correctly and with some compassion, then employees can still walk away from the business with their heads held high, and still there be a good relationship between them and their employer.
So we hear a lot, don't we, that it's the SMEs, the small businesses, that are the lifeblood, well, not just of Britain, but certainly here in the West Midlands. The vast majority of companies will employ fewer than 10 people. And these are not the sort of businesses that will have the expertise on hand, on tap, to have an in-house HR department, will they? How much do you think businesses of that size understand about their obligations from an HR point of view?
Well, that's what's been a really nice surprise for me when I launched the business, that the SMEs really do want the advice, they want the support, and they want to get it right. And I love working with my clients, because they, as I say, they want your advice, they appreciate your advice, and you can very quickly see the difference that you make for them as well.
So it's quite a satisfying job from that point of
Absolutely,
view, although presumably sometimes you have to go in and deliver a few home truths to companies sometimes.
Yes, sometimes if I've gone in and done an investigation, or I've done an appeal for a grievance or a disciplinary, then sometimes the employer is then not hearing what they want to hear. But it's up to me to be that unbiased party and just make sure that things are right, because I don't do my clients any favours by telling them what they want to hear, because that doesn't protect them.
Now, I've been doing my investigative journalist bit to find out a bit about you before you came on the show, and
oh no,
you've I don't want to use this phrase wrongly, you've been about a bit, haven't you? You've travelled Ho Chi Minh City, Moscow, Dubai. I mean, well, you've worked in some amazing places.
Oh, absolutely. I've had, and I'm still having, an amazing career. I've been very fortunate to have opportunities come along that I've been in a personal situation where I could say, yeah, I'm going to grab hold of this and I'm going to go with it. I hadn't even thought about working overseas. I was actually marking some NEBS management projects for a business and doing it at home to get quiet time. The phone went, recruitment agency, in terms of was I interested in working overseas? And I said, I'm not even looking for another job, but just out of curiosity, where are you talking about? I said, Moscow. And so I started laughing. I said, well, if you want to tempt me overseas, 3 minimum requirements: sunshine, palm trees and beaches, please. So I said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm really happy in the job that I'm doing. Very clever lady, because it did then get my curiosity going. And that was 1 o'clock in the afternoon she called. 3 hours later, at 4 o'clock, the phone went. Well, how do you feel about it now? And so I said, well, I've been thinking about it since you said something. And she said, well, it wouldn't hurt you to go and have just a quick chat with them, would it? And I said, no. So this quick chat was a 2-hour interview in London. And then I had to really decide before I took it any further whether I would go through with it if I was successful. And cut a very long story short, I ended up being offered the job and spent 3.5 years in Moscow and had an absolutely fantastic time and learned so much.
No palm trees definitely out there.
No palm trees, but then I went on to the palm trees because after 3.5 years in Moscow, I went from one end of the temperature scale to the other, which was Dubai. And so I got my palm trees, I got my sunshine, and I got my beaches.
So I guess in hindsight, what was happening to you when that proposal for the Moscow job was being put on the table is some quite good HR from that point of view, weren't they? They were doing a very good job of talking you around and persuading you, and non-confrontational approach.
Absolutely. Because at that point, I always believed that people that said they'd been headhunted were cowards that didn't want to tell their bosses that they were applying for other jobs. And then I had to eat my own words when it actually happened to me. But it also is great for your confidence that somebody contacts you with an opportunity like that. And being single, no dependents or anything, I was able to then say, yeah, fine, let's do it.
And fast forwarding then to the job you're doing now,
yeah.
How much have those experiences helped to sort of give you maybe a different perspective on some of the problems that companies around here face?
Obviously multicultural environments. In Dubai we had 56 different nationalities that worked for us, and there was only one UAE national that worked in the hotel. All the others were expats and we had to house them. So we built a village that had its own restaurant, its own mosque, its own Catholic church, supermarket, and so as part of HR, then I had a team of 100 in HR because I was managing then this village that was housing all the employees. So it was getting different cultures to work together and to also then live together harmoniously, which in multicultural as the Black Country is. I think that's been invaluable for me.
I bet it has. What's the biggest challenge, do you think, at the moment then facing companies from an HR point of view?
As you said in the introduction, everybody's well, not everybody, but the small businesses are now starting to get their staging date letters from pensions regulator in terms of auto-enrolment.
And just to explain what that is for anybody that's maybe thinking, auto-enrolment, what's that?
It's the new workplace pension scheme that the government are rolling out, where employers have to then help basically support their employees in terms of saving for their old age, because with an ageing population and people living longer, then the state pension pot is just getting smaller and smaller. So it's now the employer working with the employee to then build up that pension pot themselves. But the regulations and the administration of it is quite complex.
So the letters have started to arrive now. What's the timescale then for businesses before they suddenly start getting red notices and threats of action if they're not complying?
It varies depending on the size of the workforce, but also the age of the PAYE scheme. So what we're finding is that some of the smaller employers are still getting earlier staging dates, but that's because their PAYE scheme has been up and running for a long time, so they've been employing people for a long time. So large corporates are all done and dusted, and now it's gradually going down, and it's mainly based on size, but again, it's also the age of the PAYE scheme.
And are you finding that it's running fairly smoothly with SMEs in the West Midlands? Is there good awareness levels, good compliance?
I don't think there's sufficient awareness, to be honest, and the problem that we're going to come up against is the pension providers are going to reach capacity, because every single employer, even if you've only got one employee, is going to have to offer a workplace pension for their employees. So the pension providers are going to reach saturation point.
Do you think this sort of scheme might risk dissuading perhaps people who are one woman or one man bands at the moment taking on staff if they're looking, if they're right on that cusp of thinking, should I expand, shouldn't I expand? Is it a disincentive? It scares some people, and with
with also, you can know if you pay your employees statutory sick pay, you used to be able to reclaim that. You can't reclaim that anymore, so that's an increased cost. And the smaller businesses are really worried about the costs. But on the other side of the coin, I'm working with some sole traders who are now, because their businesses are growing quite significantly, are then taking on their first employees. So they are taking that plunge.
So it's a fairly mixed picture really, but on the whole, good news
very
and good
positive.
economy's positive because you've got those problems in the first place. Denise, we'll bring you a palm tree in next time. Thank you for coming in and chatting. After the break, we'll be talking about brownfield housing in Dudley, and we'll also be finding out why one local company is working very closely on a new programme backed by Google. Welcome back to Midlands Business Update. Now, councillors in Dudley are currently on the lookout for more brownfield sites to help housing developers and hopefully to save the green belt at the same time. Big Centre TV's Lois Swinnerton went along to find out more.
What are Dudley Council asking of landowners and developers?
It's the council's policy to have a strategic plan ready in order for be prepared to have lands available in Dudley, which will be potentially used for building of the land. Now, this particular strategy is called a Statutory Housing Land Assessment Availability Assessment Plan, which all councils should have, so they're ready, prepared, and are able to identify potential lands where we can potentially build houses. As you know, nationally we're short of housing throughout the country, and we are required to make sure that we have the lands that are available identified. The council doesn't have all the lands and answers, and this is the opportunity that we're advertising out to the private landowners who have lands that we can make use of and have a plan ready in the event there is an available funding gap that comes in from the government, so that we can work together in order to make fulfil the needs of the council and Dudley in respect to the shortage of housing.
How important is that to get the people involved?
It's very important. The council doesn't own all the lands in Dudley. There are lots of sites that are empty. In particular, it's the brown sites that we want to concentrate on first, rather than the green belt land. We want to preserve and our green belt land as much as we can, but the old brown sites, which is old contaminated industrial lands that needs to be built on first, we want to encourage everyone to come forward. If the developers or the potential landowners who are having difficulty at the moment, this is an opportunity for them to make use of those lands which have probably been sitting around for a while.
And so Dudley Council are now recognising obviously the importance of preserving the greenfield sites.
That's always been the case, but you know, obviously we're working around the brownfields. That's the important first. Greenbelt is something that, you know, we don't touch on lightly. We haven't, and what we need to do is concentrate on the brownfields first. They're much more easy to develop, although they're much more difficult in the sense that the land needs to be cleaned up first. There's initial cost, but overall, because of the accessibilities, they would be the best preferred options in order to build. It's like all, we've had an opportunity. We built the North Priory. There's an opportunity of building further 800 properties around the Cosley Eco Park, which is again was an old industrial warehouse, and trying to make full use of that particular land. There are other, I mean, Guest Hospital is another land where there's an opportunity to build more houses, and planning has just gone through 457 properties there, and you know, it is scattered about, but we want to make full use of it. Great shortage of housing in Dudley, and there's an opportunity here to work with the developers and the landowners, and together as a team, a partnership, I'm sure we can deliver a lot more than if we were working individually.
Lois Swinnerton there reporting from Dudley. Now, if you could choose one technology giant to have mentioned on your CV, a fair idea that the name Google might be quite a way up the list. So it's no wonder that a company called Ascendancy over in Shifnal is smiling at the moment, because they've been hand-picked with just a handful of companies from a list of nearly 30,000 across the UK to work on a new programme which Google is closely involved in. Helen Culstraw is here to tell us more about it. Helen, Google, good news?
I should say so, yes.
How did it come about then?
It's because we are a Google partner agency, and Google partner agencies are businesses that have been accredited by Google as being proficient in Google AdWords, which is Google's advertising system. So there are about 800 agencies across the UK that have got the Google Partners badge, which basically means we've managed a lot of campaigns, we've got some qualifications, and we've got a lot of experience, and we follow best practice. So from among those agencies, Google have selected a small number to work with very closely to help them to grow further. What Google have identified is that one of the best ways of reaching out to the small business market and getting smaller businesses to advertise on Google is for those businesses to work with an agency, because it can sometimes be quite challenging for them to manage it themselves without any prior experience. So what Google are doing is they're picking a small number of agencies who are delivering strong campaigns for their clients, who've got a good track record, and working with those agencies to help them grow further.
So by the time, so it's a series of workshops, programs over the course of what sort of length of time?
Yes, it's over a 6-month period. There are a series of different workshops. The 15 agencies from across the UK come together at Google London, and we work with a top business coach. His books are have a foreword from Richard Branson.
Right.
So he's got a good pedigree. And he particularly works with digital agencies. That's his particular specialism as a business coach. So we have these sessions with him in London.
And you've had a couple already, haven't you? So
we have had
what
2
they've been
already. Absolutely fantastic. What's really useful is not only to have the input from Robert Craven, the coach, but also to have access to the 14 other agencies from around the UK. None of them are really on our patch. We're the only agency from the Midlands that's been selected for the programme. There are agencies from Scotland, Northern Ireland, quite a lot from the southeast. And because none of us directly compete with each other, everybody's very open about their businesses and things that they've done that have worked and not worked.
And is there much common ground there or not, or are you all quite different?
Loads. I mean, actually the agencies are all different sizes. So the smallest agency is actually a one-man band, and the largest, well, I don't know, but they've got hundreds of staff. So they've picked agencies from across the spectrum of sizes. It's more based on good practice rather than
the size.
Agency size.
Well, and you're based in Shifnal, so what size are you?
Well, at the moment there are 7 of us, and we're about to bring on board our latest new recruit in September, which is going to be an apprentice. It's the first time we've taken on an apprentice, so that's it's going to be quite exciting to see how that pans out. And
you've been trading for what, 10, 11 years now?
Yes.
How different is the sort of work you were doing back then to the sort of work you're doing now?
Probably not as different as you would expect, particularly with regard to search engine optimization. A lot of agencies will tell you that, it changes all the time, Google's algorithm's always changing. But to be honest, it's always been about great content and having a great reputation on the web. And those 2 cornerstones have never really changed. The Google AdWords advertising, that's got a lot more complex over time.
Explain that to people that maybe don't know too much about it.
Yeah, Google AdWords is the platform that delivers the ads that you see across the top of Google and down the right-hand side. And you pay for your advertising on a pay-per-click basis. So each time somebody clicks on your ad, you pay a fee to Google. Sometimes a very small fee, sometimes quite a large fee. It depends how competitive the market is in terms of what people are prepared to pay. But the idea of it is that obviously the new business it will bring you will outweigh the cost, and that's where we work with clients to help them to optimise their spend and get the largest number of sales or inquiries out of their budget.
And of course we should say obviously that's not the only platform that is inviting people to spend money to boost their profile. I mean, a lot of people are using Facebook now, aren't they? And so what do you advise companies, if they come to you, if I'm a business and I say to you, I'd like to raise my profile, I think I should be spending some money online or on social media. How do I go about it, and how much should I spend? Where do you start?
We start by looking at any existing information that they've got about the performance of their website. So we start by looking at what things have they tried before and how well did those work. We look at the market that they're in. So we have a look to see how competitive it is. You want to do things that are going to be perhaps slightly different to what your competitors are doing. But at the same time, if none of your competitors are advertising on Google, then perhaps that's because they've all tried it and it doesn't work. Yeah. So you need to take those things into account, and you need to look at the nature of the business, of course, because different things work for different businesses, and we certainly don't tell everybody that they should be advertising on Google or tell everybody that they should be advertising on Facebook, because it really depends on the individual characteristics of the business and the market that they're operating in, as well as the resources that they've got, of course.
Yeah, so there's more than one strand, isn't there, when you're actually sitting there, and that's the beauty of presumably taking time to sit and work out what a company really, where their priorities are and what their marketing spend is. What do you think you'll have learned? Do you think you'll be doing anything more differently when you come out at the other end of your Google programme?
I think yes, but they won't be big changes. So the reason that all of these agencies have been selected to go on the programme is that they're doing quite well already. So I don't think we need to make any radical changes. But I think in business, generally speaking, in any case, it's more a case of doing lots of things, lots of small things right, than it is necessarily in making big sweeping changes. So I've already got a list as long as your arm of small changes that I'm going to be making.
Well, time's got the better of us. Thank you for coming in.